So I'm focusing on mostly AutoCAD today. I'm going to jump into Revit briefly just to show that this kind of concept definitely goes between programs. I'm just a little more familiar with it with AutoCAD than Revit and MicroStation, but they are things in most programs. I'm mostly going to talk about layer states and view states just to um, show you how to have a little more control of your models, whether they're bigger sites or smaller sites. So um, basically, the big takeaway I wanted to show through these couple projects, I'm going to see that I did this fast for my smaller group. I'm going to see if I can do it fast, but also more comprehensive this time. So basically, knowing how to manipulate layers and views in a model is definitely kind of a key skill to kind of take you to the next level to master design and design CAD and BIM products, in my opinion. Um, and yeah, we have a lot of layers, and in Revit, there's a lot of types and stuff. I gotta open this model. I'll do that later. Um, so in any design program, manipulating all these things is just kind of par for the course. I mean, you might have a perfect template set up for your one type of job uh, that negates that, but it's like using Photoshop. Managing your layers is a big part of your skill set to increase your efficiency, to give different design scenarios and phases, maybe go to an analysis view and then go back to your final plot view quickly without missing things, and then you plot it to a PDF and there's five things on that you didn't want. It just helps with all that stuff. So I generally, in these couple examples, I'm trying to show the power of layer states and view states for, say, things like different design alternatives. Like in this drawing, it's a small AOP site, and this layer state, we'll go into it in just a second. I'm just going to go between three different model plan views. When I'm in model space, I had alternative one, alternative two, and I had alternative three. One's a culvert, one was a low water concrete crossing, and one was a ford crossing. And then let's say I go back to my final view when I'm ready to plot um, in model space, and we'll get to that in a second. That's just one showing different design alternatives. And you could do the same thing in Revit with different phases. Um, and then possibly like in this one to show different analyses, or however you say that. So this view of this city block that I did a whole parking lot on a couple years ago that's actively being built right now. This is kind of my home base layer state. I always go back to when I'm done doing my design changes. But let's say I get an architect new site plan and I insert it, um, and I have the external reference all color coded. Oh, that was the wrong one. That shows just the interior architectural site plan. This one has the architectural site plan in AutoCAD here, but on my external reference, I got this one and there was a lot of RFIs. There's a lot of changes, little things like this, move this curb here, move this sidewalk there. So I made the XREF all purple. And here's the XREF right there, inside there, inside of the XREF. But this quickly lets me go to my 2D line work in the architectural 2D site plan and just quickly analyze that. Um, so let's call that an analysis layer state. Um, I might go update my 2D stuff, and I start with that sometimes, and I go to this layer state and I get those fixed. And then I go to a 3D layer state to get my surface all fixed. And I do that next. And maybe I have certain labels turned on and off to be my final presentation labels like these. And maybe I have a layer state, and this one maybe gets a little carried away, but I had so many RFIs on this project, it kind of made sense as I just kept taking on RFI after RFI. This one just turns on a couple of layers with a lot of analysis slope labels that I don't want to plot, but I just put in a lot of spots to quickly catch trouble slope areas and to fix in my triangulation of the surface. And then when I'm all done, I would go back to my home base model layer state and then plot my sheets. So that's kind of the power of it. One big takeaway, very key to understand with layer states and AutoCAD, is you can save one for model space. That is a world, so to speak, a lot like MicroStation. You can go into a sheet. This is the demo sheet. You can save a layer state exactly the way you want for this paper space. Anything inside this paper space, consider it like a little model space in itself. If you have like really exact layer control in your paper space. In the third area, you can apply, save, edit. A layer state is inside of a viewport in just this layout tab. So specific, say you have a really dialed in demo plan like I do here. If you always want to have a go back, think of it as a bookmark, I save one here. And it shows a little differently. It says the space you made it in, it'll say layout. And if you did it in model space, it'll say model. It's a little confusing on the layout one. You have to be outside of the viewport or inside of it. They're both called layout. So just make sure you're inside of the viewport when you save a really specific, let's say demo, this is a demo plan for this viewport specifically inside of that viewport. And I'm going to say update right now like I'm saving it, or excuse me. Yeah, update. I want to update it. And it says yes. That means it sucked in everything in my layer symbology and it's up to date. So that tells me for sure it's up to date. I wouldn't chase this around too much, but this is how you know for sure that it grabbed everything in the current snapshot. So sometimes I look at this column to verify that everything is up to date, especially after I've made a lot of changes. Another really key thing is when you make a layer state. So let's make a new one in model space. By default, and you can switch this to the opposite. I like to keep it to the default setting. When you add new layers, so if you added could be a layer from an XREF and in this model, they both affect the layer state. So it looks at XREF layers and your external references in this model. If any layer it gets added, a brand new one from wherever, you make one, add it from another drawing, copy, paste it. The default thing, if that happens, is that layer goes to off in your layer state. So just keep that in mind. That can be kind of a annoying thing about layer states to keep up and up on. Let's say I made a new layer right now. I'm just going to call it whatever. And let's give it a color. And I made a line here. It can be something difficult to manage with them. And you can turn this setting to the opposite so they always show. I tend to leave them always off so they don't, I don't like to be surprised as much on the other settings. So let's say I go back to this layer state here, my default one, it should turn it off, that line I just made. So if there's new layers that come into your model, just keep that in mind. Where you go, you can type in LAS or layer state, or for the first few times, the home tab, the layer area, a lot of it is here. So your layer states are here. I have a bunch of them. You can go to manage layer states here if you don't like typing in things. And this is that dialog box I keep going to. These are all the ones I've saved. Another important thing with them is they're basically snapshots in time. So you got to kind of actively manage them. That can be probably the most painstaking thing. So if you're in a quick turn and burn project, spending time getting these dialed sometimes isn't your most efficient use of time. But if it's a big project, say like this one with a lot of moving pieces and layers, and you have a lot of revisions, they start to really increase your efficiency. So that setting I just mentioned, it defaults to this right here. If new layers come into model, they default to turn off. You can turn that the opposite. Hit me up on the side if you ever want to learn these a little deeper, but this defaults to new layers are off. Another area that's key that I usually leave to default is over here. It can be hidden your first time, is when you make a layer state, it captures a snapshot of layer symbology, every property a layer has. So on, off, frozen, its color, line type, line weight, transparency, plot style, all those variables are symbologies of that layer. So when I'm saving this layer state and I'm hitting update, it's capturing everything in them. I leave that to default just because I'm used to working in that way, thinking in that way. But if that's too much, you can turn some of these things off. Like when you save a layer state, it doesn't suck in these properties. So let's say you change your building line from orange to red. Your layer state that you saved at the time when it was orange will remain. So that's another difficult thing with layer states to manage. That's why, a good template can help with a lot of that kind of stuff. For bigger complex sites, this is kind of my layer states on this one. So I'll show you a small drawing and a bigger drawing, how you can benefit on both. This is the larger example. This is a smaller, like little AOP grading stream crossing, but I use layer states in different ways for different benefits. So this drawing, this is my final model space layer state. And it's kind of like when I'm done with my edits, I go back to this home base and I kind of maintain this one the most. I already showed you a few of them. Here's a demo one. You can update them, or excuse me, not update them. This is just me accessing them. You can double click them or you can hit restore and it goes to the layer state. This is just me looking at my demo hatches, analyzing them, making sure they're good. I'm ready to do my 2D design. Sometimes like I turn the hatches on or certain line work or not. This one had pretty much every layer I needed for most edits. It has the layers of the hatches locked because they like to act up a lot. So I lock them so I can't, delete them or move them by accident. And if I go to this 2D, it turns on everything inside the site that's existing for my sitemap in the XREF, because there was a ton of demo integrating with curbs and stuff with existing to propose. This layer state helped me look at that a lot. So I have some existing sidewalk here. So I have everything existing selected. You can see it helped me kind of quickly, let's say, align my proposed curb all the way around this city block. The next one, it just kind of takes out a few things. And this is possibly too many of them, but sometimes I build one layer state and I quickly save another one because I only have to turn or edit a few layers on and off. And this one, I'm starting to edit the 3D surface, which I showed you already, but I think the ones I liked the most were these ones when I insert a new architectural floor plan. It came from Revit, but they kicked out a floor plan 2D model I inserted in here just to quickly check my site plan with new door locations and stuff like that, and sidewalk and all those kind of conflicts. I mean, we still had little things that came up, but it helped a lot with me seeing those things instead of just taking the word for, hey, we edited the sidewalk on this whole south side. It helped me quickly see what that meant. And then I have one really specific to when I was making feature lines that got a little bit out of hand to help me quickly analyze my feature lines for my face of curb in making grading objects. So that's a quick little rundown on this site. And before I plot, I go back to this one. And I would go to my sheets, just a couple of them that I edited. Let's say it's a site plan or grading plan. And I usually get that model space. So once I go to that layer state, I can plot successfully. But to double down on that, I would make a layer state for a really final site plan, which is this one here. So I'm ensuring that this site plan, I can always go back to it. If someone comes in my model, flips a couple layers on and off, leaves without thinking about it, And I always have a home base to go to that this is how I plotted it 2 weeks ago. The naming gets a little important. I go a little further with this. I say what it is. These ones not as much, but I'll put my, it's in model space. I'll put when I saved it, and I'll put my initials. You can do however you want, but it certainly has helped me in my career, putting something that makes sense so you can remember what you did in these snapshots of layer states to go back to. Here's a smaller site that this one was less about analysis layer states and more about 3 design alternatives smashed onto one model. Instead of making 3 CAD drawings, it was slightly more efficient for me to make all 3 alternatives in one model. Part of me wanted to do it in 3 different drawings, but there was a lot of recycling of the alignments and elements between the design alternatives. So we'll go to layer states this way. Another way to go to them, you can just go like this and scroll through them like this in live time. This is my models, different alternatives. This one was more for the control sheet, no proposed items. But this goes through my 3 design alternatives. It can be a really handy thing for, say, presentations, quickly showing a client something, quickly talking with a PM or discussing. They do take a little upfront time to control the layers and save. That's one setback of them, but once they're set up, editing in them after the fact gets easier and easier. So that's just me using 3 different design alternatives, and then I go back to my final model space when I'm ready to plot. This one here has everything on. Sometimes I will make a model space when I just want to turn everything on because I don't want to dig through my hundreds of layers and try to find what is missing. I sometimes will make a layer state on the tip top, and you can see I kind of use numerics like this to get them this cascade in order. That's just another level of me keeping them organized with myself. But this one I sometimes do to quickly find a layer that I might have lost track of and I want back on. And this one is my home base when I'm ready to plot. And I'll go to a sheet, and I got my alternative 1 here. And remember, this is a different layer state save inside of this viewport than the model space I was just in. So I might apply a second one when I want a snapshot of just this Alt-1 plan and profile. And you can see it says yes. That means I had recently saved that, and it's everything is in the current layers that are in the properties here is matching this layer state. So everything that is going on possible in this drawing, the layers is matching the layer state. So that's just kind of a little foray into layer states. There's one more thing that are related to layer states. They're called views and view manager view states. They work a little bit like layer states, but you can add a location, animation. I haven't done the animation as much, and you can update layers. So I don't use them as much in Civil 3D, but I have when I've done architectural 3D models in AutoCAD a little more. So those are in the view tab. And this one, I did save a couple. I usually start with saving a view state that is the top-down view because we work in Civil 3 mostly in the top-down view, profile and section view as well. But I do that because that's my home base starting point, and that is this view here. And then let's say I save, in this case, I just save one isometric view looking at the surface. So let me go to that view. It'll take me to an orientation if I don't crash CAD, and it'll rotate it, and it'll show a different type of view. I don't recommend orbiting a lot in Civil 3D. It crashes a lot. So hopefully I don't have that happen right now. It's a 3D program, but it definitely doesn't move around in 3D as well as like Revit does. While that's hopefully loading, I'm going to open a Revit model to show that these kind of tools aren't just Civil 3D, they're kind of in a lot of programs. There it went. So that shows you how clunky it can get. Like, I don't, It's sometimes when you have certain elements turned on, like Kogo points and other things. I purposely made this view with shading of the surface just to show you something different. In an ISO view, it doesn't look that pretty. I didn't spend a lot of time prettying this up, but it literally took me to this view, orbited it in my UCS. You can control layers in views as well, a little bit like layer states. I'm going to go in the view tab here into view manager. And so this is the one I just went to. And you can update layers. Like if you change layers, you can say update here. It'll suck those changes in. A little different than layer states, but kind of similar in that way. It orbited, rotated, went to this UCS. There's more you can do with these. You can change the visual style and other things that you can't do with layer state. You can make an animation, which I never have done, but I've mostly saved them to go between 3D views and my top-down view. So why it was important to save that top view first, I can quickly go back to it and we're all good. And I can continue on. I did the same thing with this parking lot. I just saved one in the same manner. It's the same kind of rule here. Like it's Civil 3D is a 3D program, but orbiting around, if you've ever used Civil 3D enough, can be treacherous. So let's go to View Manager, or I think if you just type in View, yep, gets it open too. And let's go to the ISO view in this one. I made a new one here. So when you get a view lined up and orbited, that's when you come in here and get it just the way you want with layers. That's when you make a new one. But I'm just going to apply this one. And it takes me to this exact view location UCS. And I'm going to go back to it when I'm done with it. This was the home base one I started. I don't use these as much as layer states, but they can be handy, especially when going between different 3D views and top views. In Revit, it's definitely a program that's much more 3D orbit friendly for sure, and your 3D model just responds better in that capacity, in my opinion. I know a little bit about these. I don't know every working thing, but I will save view templates a lot of times when I get a view dialed the way I like for a final plot, like this 3D view. And I usually access them with the right click menus, apply or create view templates. And I know how to edit and change. So let's say create view template. That's how you make a new one. But if I go to apply view template, you can change. I have a few saved here, and you can change which view type filter, which discipline. I usually don't mess with those as much, but here's really what you're changing. Anything applying to these things in the model. You can go into any aspect of the model, and you can give it different shadings. You can turn it on and off completely, an entire category, say like all walls or all ceilings or all model lines. You can get pretty deep in here, but you can edit these after the fact is what I'm trying to say. But I've made a couple already. So let's say I have a 3D view here. I have a model line sketched out here. I just did to show that there's a category that's on, and I have that view template. I can apply a view template and make it one with model line, and I have a view template without a model line. But they basically take me to a very similar view template as I have in my final 3D view. So I'm just kind of showing you that most of these design programs have some aspect of layer and view control. That's all I got. If anyone has any questions or wants to see anything or curious about anything, I think we're about out of time. But